Happy birthday to Michael Schumacher, the 7-time Formula One world champion. Turns 56 years of age on the 3rd of January. And for those kids that don't know how good this guy is, I'm sure some people nowadays question whether Michael Schumacher is the GOAT or one of the GOATs, the greatest of all time of Formula One. And for me, there is absolutely no doubt that this guy is absolutely up there. Despite some very controversial moments in his career, you cannot deny that on his day, which was pretty much every Sunday afternoon pretty much, this guy was absolutely unstoppable in a Formula One car. So I'm just going to give my opinions on this and, you know, him as a person and his controversial moments in Formula One. I did a full in-depth podcast years ago about Michael Schumacher and why, for me, he's one of the greatest of all time, without a doubt. You know, when he retired, I mean, the thing is, Schumacher retired for the first time in 2006. And this was just before Sir Lewis Hamilton made his debut in Formula One, before Sebastian Vettel made his debut in Formula One, nearly a decade before Max Verstappen made his debut in Formula One. You know, when Schumacher retired, arguably at the peak of his powers still as well in 06, I mean, he was challenging for the World Championship, an 8th World Championship in 2006 with Fernando Alonso. So he was by no means slowing down. And he could have kept going, in my opinion. You know, and, you know, this is a guy that rewrote every single record in the book. 7 world championships, you know, I mean, the closest anybody got to that at that time was indeed Juan Manuel Fangio, got 5 world championships. Lewis Hamilton has since equaled that statistic as well, and Hamilton has beaten a lot of Schumacher's records as well. But at the time when Schumacher retired, when, you know, you look at the similarities between their two careers in terms of their achievements, you know, they're quite neck and neck, really. There's not a lot between them. The only difference is that Hamilton now has competed in much more Grand Prix, because even though his career has not been as long, there are much more races now. You know, most of the seasons when Schumacher was racing, there was, 17, 18 races. Nowadays, there's, you know, 24, 23 races every single season. But 91 victories from just over 300 starts. And I think, again, by the time that he retired first time around, he had something around just over 200 race starts. So, you know, you're getting towards a win every other race, which is just ridiculous when you take his whole career in kind of retrospective. 155 podiums as well. I mean, that's half the races he competed in total. Again, you take his later career when he made his comeback in 2010 out of there, the stat gets even more impressive. 68 pole positions as well, which was a record. He broke Ayrton Senna's record of 65 pole positions very late on in his career, and 77 fastest laps. Again, a record, and I think still a record to this day, unless I'm very much mistaken. Now, before I get into some of Schumacher's best moments in Formula One, I'm going to go through some of his darkest, because people will always bring these up when it comes to Michael Schumacher, and they will quite often use them as reasons for him not being the greatest of all time, which I understand to an extent. But someone said this very well on my F1 YouTube channel, the F1 Chronicles YouTube channel, a while ago, and we're talking about Max Verstappen and his controversies. This was a guy that apparently has seen every single Formula One season. He must be rather old for sure if this person's telling the truth. But, you know, I think his point is valid regardless of whether, you know, his claim of being, you know, around since 1950, being able to see all the great champions, is true or not. And that point is that all the great champions have controversies. They put themselves on that pedestal, and they are very much there to be shot at from everybody, whether it's the media, whether it's other drivers. And I'm not saying Schumacher's a victim in this. I mean, partly I think he is, but he did make a rod for his own back at times. I mean, you look at some of the controversies in his career, and it's quite prevalent what happened, really. I mean, 1994 in Australia, going for his first world title with Damon Hill, that is one that very much divides opinion to this day. I'm very much of the opinion that Schumacher knew what he was doing with that, and perhaps he should have been punished for it. You know, I don't think there's a counter argument to that. I think it's pretty clear what happened. But what is absolutely not in doubt is 1997, going for the championship there with Jacques Villeneuve and deliberately trying to hit him and take him off, just like he did 3 years prior, in my opinion, with Damon Hill. And he was thrown out of the championship as a result. He was disqualified from the 97 Drivers' Championship, and he was almost fired from Ferrari as a result. The Italian media was calling for his head at the time. And then, of course, there's ones like 2006 in Monaco, where he deliberately blocked the track to try and stop qualifying and stop people doing a faster time. He got punished for that. But in every single one of these moments where there is a counter of so many incredible moments. I mean, Schumacher produced some of the most unbelievable drives. And when Martin Brundle, who was his teammate at Benetton in 1992, when he speaks about Schumacher, he says that he was the most complete Formula One driver he's ever seen. And I absolutely agree with that. I think the guy was an absolute relentless winning machine. And honestly, I think Max Verstappen might well rival him as he goes through his career, as he gets older. Obviously, Verstappen only being 27 years of age, So it's hard to say where Verstappen will go. But, Schumacher, where he went to, the level he went to, he was just unbelievable. Once he got in the lead of a race, he never let it go. He had an absolute vice-like grip, a stranglehold on the sport for so long. 1994, in his first season for Benetton, the guy was winning every single race pretty much, or second in every single race. He only went to the last round of the season because of the disqualifications and the penalties and things like that. If it wasn't for that, Hill wouldn't have had a hope in hell of catching him. 1996, he then moves to Ferrari, tries to revive the Scuderia's fortunes, and he turns that team around. 96, the team was not quite there really when it came to the performance of the car, but he still produced some of the most incredible drives you've ever seen. 1996 in Spain, winning by a minute or whatever it was in a car that was nowhere near good enough to do that for the most part. It was just mesmeric. 94 as well. I've got to mention some of the wins in 94. 94, when he was going for his first championship, winning the Spanish Grand Prix, again, same circuit at Barcelona. He had two of his best ever drives there. Winning there, getting second place there despite being stuck in fifth gear, I think it was, around the entire track. He had to do pit stops in fifth gear. The talent of this guy was unmatched, really, during his era, for sure. Once Senna was out of the way, once Senna passed away tragically, I think this guy was just on another level to everybody else. 98 in Hungary, doing qualifying lap after qualifying lap after qualifying lap just to get past the McLarens, and he did it. Then winning 5 championships in a row for Ferrari in the early 2000s, The guy was just unbelievable, and for me, it's so hard to definitively say who the GOAT is, and this will be a video I do one day with a tier list or something like that, because I know you guys like them. I like doing them personally too. I'll try and do it this off season, but for me, it's impossible to say definitively who the greatest of all time is. How do you compare drivers that never competed against each other? You might be able to compare Michael Schumacher and Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton, because they're all similar-ish eras. I mean, they're spread out a bit, but there is a bit of overlap there with at least Hamilton and Verstappen, and then Hamilton also a tiny bit with Schumacher as well. But how do you compare Schumacher to Fangio? How do you compare Jim Clark to Lewis Hamilton? How do you compare Verstappen with Senna? You can't. You can try, but they never shared the same racetrack, and they're completely different eras with completely different driving styles, cars, circumstances, safety conditions, weather conditions, tracks. Everything's different. But without a doubt, Michael Schumacher is one of the GOATs. He was an absolutely dominant force in his era. When he was winning his championships, he was unbelievable. Mid-90s to mid-2000s, this guy was something else. Before him came Senna and Prost and Mansell. After him came Raikkonen and Alonso. And in between that gap, he was unstoppable. The combination of car, team, driver, everything, it just worked perfectly, like a well-oiled machine at Maranello. How desperate are they for those days to come back? And they might well come back one day, but Schumacher will forever be a Ferrari legend, forever be a legend of Formula One. And I really, really hope one day we see him again. We get an interview with him, and he's well enough to talk to us. And I really, really want that to be the case, because obviously, he hasn't made any public appearances. Some people say that he was at his daughter Gina's wedding last year, but we've not heard anything about that. We don't know if that's true. That's just reports. So I really hope he comes back one day into the public eye. And of course, I mean this from the bottom of my heart, because I know some people say that, why are you still saying this after all these years? It's been over a decade since the accident, but I mean it from the bottom of my heart. Get well soon, Michael. Keep fighting. Keep fighting, Michael. Hashtag keep fighting, Michael is something I will always use on my Michael Schumacher videos, because I mean it. I really do. And, despite being someone that, I'll be honest, when he was racing, I was not really a fan of him. Very early on in my Formula One days, I was very much taught, being a Brit, to, not like this guy. He's the German who wins every weekend. He ruins our weekends. But, looking back on him now, he was something really, really special. He really, really was. And he'll be remembered forever. He'll be forever a 7-time world champion. Still one of the 2 drivers to do that feat. And, it's going to be a long time. Unless Hamilton does it, it's going to be a long time since we see someone else either join that rank or surpass it, if it ever happens anyway. But those are my thoughts, guys. Michael Schumacher, a controversial figure, but for me, if we're all being honest here, whether you love or loathe him, you can't deny the man had a God-given talent in that car, and it was just something else. And the dedication, the fitness regimen that he had, everything, it was absolutely on another level. And there's no mystery why this guy was as successful as he was. And had he kept going, he could have kept going after 06, in my opinion. Ferrari ousted him in favour of Kimi Raikkonen. If they didn't do that, I think he could have won an 8th championship quite comfortably. I will be honest, 2008, you stick him in the car instead of Felipe Massa. For me, he's going to win the championship. But that's an alternate history thing. That's my opinion. What's yours? What's your favourite Schumacher moment? There's so many to choose from, of course. Like, share, comment, subscribe as always, guys, here on the F1 Chronicle. And we'll see you very soon. I'll see you very soon. And of course, like I said at the start of the video, happy birthday, Michael. I hope wherever you are as well as you can be. I hope you've enjoyed your day as well as you can. I know you weren't watching this video, but I always do these messages like this because, you know, like I said, legend of Formula 1 for sure. And one thing as well, one last thing I will mention. This video has gone on for a long time, I know, but one last thing I'll mention, trailblazer as well in terms of being a German in Formula 1. Of course, there were Germans in Formula 1 before that. Stefan Belloff was a legend before he passed away, of course. Hans-Jochen Stuck as well as another guy I can think off the top of my head. But Schumacher was the first champion, and then there was a whole generation of drivers. So many German drivers coming through after Schumacher. Most notably of all, Sebastian Vettel, 4-time world champion. So there is that. But yeah, see you soon, guys. Have a good one. Have a lovely weekend and a happy new year to you.